Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the 2019 Justin and Tyler Movie Awards, and we are now at the final People Award of the year, which is our Best Directors of 2019. Gee, Tyler, you look like you have a question for directors. Do you?
I felt that this year was an especially strong year for directors. Do you feel the same?
Interesting. I did find that I had a lot of competition this year, but I would say the strength of competition, not necessarily what it has been in years past. So I think I could probably get on board with that. Like, I think if you take the year in a vacuum, I thought there were a lot of fairly similar.
I had a hard time this year.
Did you have a hard time
ordering them and stuff? Yeah. I had a really hard time. I always have a hard time with directors because it's my favorite people one.
Right.
But I had a really hard time this year.
I think my number one choice this year is arguably my least defensible choice for director in the 10 years that I've done this.
Good.
I like it, but I think it's probably my least defensible.
That's good. I like that.
That'll be fun.
I like those picks. Like last year when I picked Nicolas Cage for Best Actor.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. So we will get there.
So I'll start with my 3 honorable mentions. My first one is Joanna Hogg for The Souvenir. Number 2 is Issa Lopez for Tigers Are Not Afraid, which is a big cheater from 2017, but it's also considered a 2019 movie. It's weird how movies work. And then number 1 for honorable mentions is Robert Eggers for The Lighthouse.
Nice.
All right, so for The Souvenir, this was a weird one for me because I'm not even sure that I like the directing.
Okay. It's
weird because there's some beautiful scenes in the shot well, but it's also incredibly challenging. There's like a coldness and an isolation to where the camera places itself and it lingers, and there's that distance and even the sets themselves. But why I put it was because it fits so well thematically that I don't know that it matters whether it took me out of the movie or not. Which is weird. I don't know if that makes sense. And I don't really feel that way towards most movies, but it was a very distinctive directorial presence that I felt like I needed to give it a nod, even if sometimes it took me out, but then I could understand the author intent there. And that's important to me. Author intent is important to me. So even if I don't like something, I can respect it because of that. So I wanted to give some love. I didn't love The Souvenir nearly as much. I liked it as I saw in other lists because people really liked that movie, and I thought it was good. But the directing choice was interesting. And then Issa Lopez for Tigers Are Not Afraid. I mean, a great eye for imagery, one, and then just the ability to direct children.
Right.
Because, and I fall victim to this. Sometimes people think of directing and think of, where the camera is, and they give a lot of credit to directing and, cinematography. But, part of it is also directing the actor. You get a hands-off director, and the performances might suck. And I think if you're a director who can get amazing performances out of children, I think that counts for a lot. So, and then Robert Eggers for The Lighthouse, it's just a masterwork in direction. I mean, he's, from a technical perspective, shot composition and his ability to create a foreboding, claustrophobic atmosphere, just good shots in general. Gets great performances from the 2 leads. Great usage of the aspect ratio. I got some complicated feelings with The Lighthouse, but not in the directing.
Right.
The directing is wonderful, and I'll just leave it at that because I'm getting the feeling that probably The Lighthouse shows up. Maybe I'm wrong at some time, so we'll talk more about The Lighthouse. So yeah, those are my 3.
All right, and I'll immediately lean into my honorable mentions because Robert Eggers is in mine as well. Doesn't make the top 3, but makes the honorable mentions. And yeah, the aspect ratio especially, when I started watching the movie and I was like, oh, this is in 1.14 to 1.
He used
I go,
it really well.
He-
And that's been a trend, though. Like, different aspect ratios in movies. Like, Ghost Story had it, and there was another movie I liked. So it's kind of like a bit of, not a trend, it's not everything, but I'm seeing it more.
Right.
But he used it really well.
And to like such a genius choice of location, which was Nova Scotia.
Yeah.
And it did create this such a claustrophobia and such foreboding about like weather. Like just like it was the storm itself was just created this backdrop for what was occurring between these two characters. And like you say, got phenomenal performances, I think, from both Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson. But I kind of have some complicated feels about the movie as well. So,
and that's the thing. Like, he did The Witch as well.
Yes.
Which I didn't love, but I will never crap on the directing.
No, absolutely.
There's problems that exist that we'll get into of Robert Eggers movies, in my opinion, but directing is not one of them.
No, absolutely not. So my other two honorable mentions this year, aside from Robert Eggers, is James Gray for Ad Astra. Because of the Kubrickian, if the movie felt like a kind of I'm not going to call it a Kubrick ripoff, because that's the negative way to look at it, but it did feel like there were certain parts of that movie like this feels like such an homage to Kubrick, and anytime you give me an homage to Kubrick, I'm going to be on your team. So I'm very much on Team James Gray for what. And again, we talked about the performance of Brad Pitt in that movie, and other performances as well, but I mean, Brad Pitt's obviously is the one that stands out. And again, sort of a second movie in a row where you talk about creating claustrophobia and creating an atmosphere of foreboding and getting excellent performances. So James Gray has been on my list for most of the year, ever since I saw Ad Astra. And then Greta Gerwig for Little Women, because to make a period piece like that and have it feel so authentic, get such incredible performances out of multiple people, because like obviously I put Saoirse Ronan on there, but like Emma Watson is excellent in that movie. It's the best, arguably the best Chris Cooper maybe I've ever seen. Timothée Chalamet is just great in general, but he's very good in this. So to get such great performances out of such a wide cast, and to make such an authentic period piece to post-Civil War era USA, it just felt like such an experience to watch that movie. So Greta Gerwig winds up on my honorable mention as well.
So like I said, I didn't see Little Women. However, James Gray, he did The Lost City of Z as well, which I didn't love. It was another of those good but not great movies. But that guy knows how to shoot a movie. He is a very good director, but I liked Ad Astra. Not as much as you, but I certainly liked Ad Astra. But he's a name, to look for if you were looking for like a good directing job.
With Greta Gerwig, I did want to make the point too, like in comparison to Lady Bird, which is the other big one that she's done, also with Saoirse Ronan, so she likes to cast Saoirse Ronan, which is good.
I like director-actor relationships.
Yeah,
you
me
always
too.
See one in their movies.
Yeah, absolutely. But like in comparison to that, which I thought Lady Bird was enjoyable but uneven, this was a very almost a flawless viewing experience. So she definitely has progressed since Lady Bird, and I significantly think that Little Women is probably the best Greta Gerwig, maybe the best movie we ever see from Greta Gerwig.
Yeah, because I remember thinking I enjoyed Lady Bird, maybe an 8 out of 10, but I remember also thinking it was slightly overrated. But a good movie.
Yeah.
Well, great movie even, just not, not what people were saying. But I'm glad The Little Women ended up being better. All right, my number 3 is Heliandro Landis for Monos.
Ooh, okay.
Just from the opening shot to the final shot, this was expertly done, perfectly captured atmosphere, did a really good job of making the movie feel almost otherworldly and interesting, even though a lot of it took place in one spot. Just great imagery, brought everything to life. One of those movies where the atmosphere or the setting and where they are is almost a character. Captured a descent into madness exceptionally well. one of the best looking movies of the year. One that I was excited to see, and when I did see it, it all added up to be like a great movie, and the directing is a big part of that. So yeah, Alejandro Melendez. I might be screwing up the last name, but Manos is a really great movie.
Manos is one that I didn't wind up getting to see, unfortunately. It was definitely on the list, but didn't quite make the cut by the end of the year. But yeah, no, that's definitely an accomplishment when you can take a film that's got not a wide variety of set pieces or whatever and still have it
always compelling.
Yeah.
Like probably one of the best opening scenes just from a visual perspective that I saw this year. I mean, I never thought of it. It's kind of just a off the cuff statement for me that I haven't thought about, but I think it's right.
My number 3 best director of 2019 is Chad Stahelski, I believe is how you pronounce it, for John Wick 3 Parabellum. And
interesting pick.
Yeah, and it's funny because you mentioned like with Manos, it's like, well, you know, not really a lot of set pieces, but still kind of makes it work. With John Wick 3, you continue to see the expansion of the John Wick universe into a bunch of different places, and it stays consistently, well, first of all, visually outstanding. The visuals in the movie are great. The fight choreography in the movie is tremendous. And I know, obviously, that's not all the director, but the director's got to have their fingers in everything.
Yeah.
It's shot fantastically well. It continues to get this tremendously talented performance out of Keanu Reeves, who had a bit of an up and down year, which I'm sure we'll talk about at some point. But just as I'm watching John Wick 3, I'm just like, these movies have been beautiful. And I don't think they've had the same director all 3 times.
No, they haven't.
So the fact that you can change directors, but your visual style is still so impeccable and still looks like it's so competently done, and there's no like real significant creative flaws in moving from one movie to another that I can see anyway. I had to give it up to Chad, and I'm going to get the proper pronunciation last name. Yeah, Chad Stahelski for John Wick 3.
I never considered it because I don't really consider, John Wick to be a good directing. It's a great trilogy. I never really consider it as in that way, but that's an interesting perspective.
Oh, I'm glad when I can say interesting things.
Yes. So my number 2 is Ari Aster for Midsommar. I guess it's pronounced Midsommar, yep. Midsommar. Anyway, I know Hereditary is not exactly your favorite movie ever, but I think that this dude is becoming, or has become, he's one of the best directors in horror, period.
Mm-hmm.
And, you can... and maybe you disagree with this, but it's like you can dislike Hereditary as like a story or whatever, but the directing is phenomenal. And Midsommar is not Hereditary. I don't love it as much as Hereditary, but that doesn't mean like he gets the framing right, the contrast of color and darker material, the unusual and inspired camera angles. He can make certain shots linger, but they don't get boring. It's just the way he captures the atmosphere. It's just his movies are like a feast for the eyes. So always worth a watch just because he's actually doing something that's really inspired every single time. Even, Midsommar, like I said, it's not as good as Hereditary, and I don't think there's anybody on the planet that thinks it is, because Hereditary was a big deal for the people who really liked it.
And that was the one thing that I can say about Hereditary, is that was probably the element of Hereditary that I did enjoy the most. Because I'm like, I can, even as somebody that didn't enjoy that movie nearly as much as a lot of other people, I can look at that and be like, this guy knows what he's doing.
Yeah,
like, this is a talented director in a movie that just didn't quite hit for me. No, that's a good pick. I like it. He's developing a nice little resume.
Yeah, he is.
My number 2 best director of 2019 is Jordan Peele for Us. And obviously Jordan Peele's been on this list for quite a long time because that movie came out in like March. And I said it, and I think you've even cited it as one of your favorite lines that I've ever put in a review for a movie, where I talk about how Jordan Peele is so insistent on his themes and his tones, and is sometimes to the detriment of the narrative telling of the story. And that's not a criticism of Jordan Peele. That's a feature of Jordan Peele's directing. And the scene when they first enter the underground bunker, where all of those rabbits,
The little bun
the
bun.
little buns.
That's
where
when I
they're-
got distracted.
Exactly. That's when you were like, I don't care what this
What's
movie's
going
about.
on in the front? Because there's a bunny hopping around in the background. So I'm paying attention to that to see what that does.
That scene when they first
Yes.
enter that underground bunker is arguably my favorite, still my favorite possible
It's an
sequence
awesome.
of the whole year. And that movie really did stick with me for quite some time. In most ways, I also think it was a bit of a step up from Get Out. I enjoyed it. I think
So no one
performance-wise
agrees
a little
with
bit
us
more.
on that.
No, I know. It's all right, though. They were wrong. It's fine. I did think it, in a lot of ways, it was a step up from Get Out. And Jordan Peele is a director that every time I see his name attached to something, I'm like, cool. Put that one on the calendar. Definitely going to go check that out. Jordan Peele, my number 2.
Yeah, that's the thing about Jordan Peele. I don't remember when I watched Get Out. I don't remember ever thinking this is directed amazingly well. I remember thinking there's some good social commentary. It's a fun movie. But with Us, I thought this guy is coming into his own. Because even from the opening shot, with all the rabbits in the cage and the way it just slowly pulled back, was very uncomfortable for me. However, it was a very good shot, and he nailed the directing the whole time through. And then, like you said, that sequence was fantastic. And you know, while I'll ding him a bit for allowing, you know, the performance of what's her name again?
Lupita Nyong'o.
Yeah. You know, I criticized her performance, and he allowed that to happen, so I have to ding him a bit. But visually, it was fantastic, and I did consider him in my honorable mentions because I do think that he, like I said, he really came into his own here, and he's becoming a more accomplished director because I feel like Get Out was ambitious in the sense of he wanted to get out, make a statement, and dip his toes into that because, you know, he was a comedian and stuff. But now he's like, okay, I made that movie, and now I'm gonna become an auteur, you know? Like, all right, my number 1 is Harmony Korine for The Beach Bum.
Color me shocked.
I don't even say it with any excitement because I knew that. I don't know that there was any question. Even, I'm trying to think. Like, I had a really hard time with all of my directors this time, like I said, but I don't know that Harmony Korine ever really came that close to losing the top spot. It's only because I don't think that The Beach Bum necessarily was the most. He does interesting things with the cameras, though. He's a fantastic director and has a unique vision and eye for things. But it was his commitment to fun. And you may disagree with this because you didn't love the movie. It was his commitment to fun and the way that he drenched the entire movie in that. Even to, I mean, we'll talk about The Beach Bum later. So maybe I won't get into that. It's just his commitment to fun. And everything just oozed fun. The way it looked, the colors, the way he shot everything, it was just meant to be a good time, and that's, maybe there are directing jobs that did more unique things this year, which is weird because I actually consider Harmony Korine one of the most unique directors I've ever seen.
Yeah.
But he kind of played it a little more straight this time, but I also think it was really beneficial to the experience. So, yeah.
But it wasn't unwarranted.
Yeah, it wasn't unwarranted. It's not like I just woke up one day and was like, I'm a fanboy of him. It's like, well, no, he gave me a body of work that made me a fanboy.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yes, I'm a little biased, but we all are.
I mean, that's the one thing that I can definitely say about Harmony Korine movies is, like, he picks a tone and he sets it, and damn it, he's gonna keep it.
He doesn't care.
He does not care one little bit, and that is like I said with Jordan Peele. Like, that's not a criticism. That's a feature of Harmony Korine movies. Like, I will not for 1 second. I won't poo-poo the direction for the movie. And I mean, I'm not really poo-pooing. I don't think anything about the movie, but like you say,
I remember your criticism that
good.
we're going to get into.
Yeah, we'll get
not
there.
for best director because
Right.
it doesn't fit with talking about.
Yeah, it doesn't quite fit with.
Yeah.
A little bit.
A little bit, but not.
We'll get there.
It deserves to be elsewhere.
For sure. And to cap off the best directors of 2019, my number one best director of 2019, and I mentioned this to Tyler off camera, that I think this is arguably my least defensible pick ever for best director since in the 10 years that we've been doing this. Reminder, we've been doing this for 10 years. My pick, my number one best director of 2019 is Robert Rodriguez for Alita Battle Angel. Because, and like I said, I think it's the least defensible best director pick I've ever made. But, visually, the movie's tremendous. Performance-wise, I thought the movie was tremendous. And it introduced us to this universe that, I mean, unless you've read the manga, the Battle Angel Alita manga, I obviously had no idea that this universe existed, but it introduced me to a universe and I'm like, I want so much more of this Alita universe. And I mean, that movie sets up like we're gonna have more. So I hope that's the case, that we're gonna wind up having at least one more movie where you could have like a real kick-ass like duology or something. It doesn't need to be a trilogy necessarily, but we'll see when the second movie happens. But I thought the way the fight choreography happened, the CGI is fantastic, I thought. And just the way the movie looks and the tone that the movie sets, and just showing us this big new sci-fi universe that we can do some cool stuff with. I had to give it up to Robert Rodriguez, and he winds up being my number one.
If memory serves, it was a very expensive movie and didn't make nearly enough money back to warrant a sequel. I could be wrong because it's been a long time since I thought about this, so I'm not sure we're going to get a sequel. But Robert Rodriguez is a unique cookie. He might be able to get it done.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But I'm pleased that you're showing some love to Robert Rodriguez. Not that I'm going to sit here and say I'm a massive fan of the guy. I liked El Mariachi quite a bit, and then, Planet Terror was really good. Now I'm having a hard time. And I love that he helped bring Lucha Underground to the world.
Right, exactly.
Because he has, it's his network.
I'm pretty sure, yeah. Shout out Lucha.
So he, there's a lot I like about Robert Rodriguez, and I like the way he kind of shoots movies and stuff, and I consider myself a fan, but not a gigantic fan. But I like to see that we're here talking about Robert Rodriguez, even though I don't agree.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I like the movie. It's okay. I just don't feel that level of awe.
To answer the question about budget v. box office, it was a $200 million movie that made $405 million at the box office. So it might have paid for itself.
Wait, what was it again?
$200 million budget,
Yeah.
$405 million box office.
It didn't pay for itself.
Didn't pay for itself? Yeah, fair enough.
It was too expensive.
Yeah, I mean, for a $200 million budget, I mean, that is definitely a big budget.
Yeah,
so
they're not looking at that saying that based on financials anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, you never know. Like I said, maybe he gets it done.
Hopefully.
Maybe he sells it. I don't know.
There you go, folks. That closes out the people section of the 2019 Justin and Tyler Movie Awards. And now we head into what is basically our main events. Your next video is going to be our top 5 worst movies of 2019. And we got some garbage to hold our nose and take a giant double deuce on. And then we get into our top 30 best movies of 2019, the stuff that we absolutely fell in love with, and just in general the stuff that we liked. So that's what's coming up in our next 2 videos. Next time you see us, top 5 worst. Time to deal with some garbage.
Thank you.